Have you seen the latest report from the Center for Effective Philanthropy? It's the State of Nonprofits in 2025. There's some really interesting findings, so I want to highlight a few of those, but also draw attention to the plight of smaller nonprofits. But let's go through some of these findings and see what we can all learn from it. So here's some of the key findings in summary, right? Nonprofit leaders are across the board having more difficulty pursuing their mission, right? At least they're a little bit distracted by some of the chaos and uncertainty around federal funding and executive orders. Makes sense. And there's an increasing burnout rate. So here we see in stark relief the reasons behind them. The federal elections were a big part of it. Changes to federal funding, obviously a big part of this. So many smaller nonprofits rely heavily on federal funding, so this makes a lot of sense. So it made me want to jump quickly to the financial outlook. And the numbers for this part really interested me in terms of like the health of a nonprofit organization. If they have reserves, they can withstand some of the turbulence in the environment. But if you look at this data, almost 46% have less than 5 months of reserves. That's very little time. 26% have about 12 months or so. That's fairly healthy. So that's a good thing. There were some positive notes. In the end of fiscal year 2024, majority of the nonprofit leaders said that they actually received more funding than anticipated from foundations, individuals. So that's a positive note. But then in an interesting reversal, just a few months later, now most of them are, and more than most of them, are saying that they don't anticipate any positive news on the revenue front from foundations, individuals, any of these sources. And of course, the leaders are trying to do the right thing, right? They're looking for new funding sources. It's always good to diverse revenue sources. They're trying to engage more effectively with the current ones. So figuring out who the right ones to talk to in that mix is really important. And that's what my company is set up to do. They're trying to adjust their staffing, etc. But there's a catch in all this statistic that most people aren't paying attention to. So if you jump to the methodology section, I was really curious about the breakdown of the respondents. They had a pretty good response rate. Out of 800 who were surveyed, they got a 66% response rate. That's not bad. The thing that I found most interesting is that just half of them, the median of these organizations, have budgets less than $1.9 million. So I venture to guess stats that we heard earlier would be tremendously skewed if we were only looking at the smaller organizations with budgets less than $1.9 million. Smaller nonprofits behave differently than larger ones. If you have here $300 million, you can do a lot. You can have stability. You can have a longer runway to secure your future. So I really hope that the Center for Effective Philanthropy will consider breaking up this report and look at the smaller nonprofit organizations, how those findings differ based on the size of their budgets. I'd be really curious to see that, and I'm guessing it's not a great picture.